Juneteenth by Vanda Nelson and Drew Nelson. Illustrated by Mark Schroeder. Jubilee! It is June 19th, 1865. A hot day in Texas. Clouds decorated the bright blue sky. On a farm outside the city of Galveston, a man hoes corn. 5 miles away, a teenage boy chops wood. Nearby, a woman scrubs the floor. Her sister milks a cow in the barn. It seems like a normal day. Then a message arrives in Galveston. It races from ear to ear through the town. The message is carried to the countryside by riders on horseback. It is carried by wagon and by people on foot. The people on foot are running because the message is so important. When the news reaches the man in the cornfield, tears roll down his cheeks. 5 miles away, the woodcutter plants his axe in a stump and runs to hug his father. Nearby, the woman stops scrubbing and dances across the wet floor. Her sister drops a bucket of milk and falls to her knees. As the news spreads across Texas, people stop working and jump for joy. These men and women and children were no ordinary workers. They were black slaves. The news that arrived on June 19th changed their lives forever. On that day, General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston. He read an order from President Abraham Lincoln. The order said the slaves were free. This was good news, but it was old news. President Lincoln had given this order in 1863, but slaves in some places were not told right away. It took more than 2 years for the order to reach the Texas slaves. When it finally did, the streets of Galveston rang with black voices shouting, "We're free! Free! Free!" Slavery. But how did black people become slaves? Imagine that you're playing outside. Suddenly you're captured in a net like an animal. You are packed to the bottom of a ship with many other stolen people. You are taken far away to another country. You are forced to stand naked on a platform called on an auction block. Do you guys know what an auction block is? It's basically where they put something and people pledge money and say, "I'll pay this much for it," or "I'll pay this much." A man pays money for you. He owns you now. You are his slave. You must do everything he says, and he can do whatever he wants to you. He can make you work. He can put chains on you. He can whip you. He can even kill you. You never again see your home or your family. Beginning in 1619, these things happened to a million African people. They were taken to North America, which is where we live, and to other places as slaves. Why did Americans want slaves? Some people in the North wanted housekeepers and farmhands. Many Southerners needed people to help work on their plantations. Plantations were huge farms for cotton, tobacco, corn, and other crops. Plantation owners sold these crops to make money. The owners could keep more money if they did not have to pay the people who work for them. They did not pay slaves. War. In 1861 through 1865, not everyone wanted slavery. Many people in the North and some in the South wanted to free the slaves. They knew that slavery was wrong, and they spoke against it. They believed that all people were created equal. Most Southerners did not want slavery to end. Without slaves, who would pick their crops and chop their wood? Who would cook their meals and clean their houses? Also, many white people believed they were better than black people. They believed that blacks were not equal. So slaves did not deserve to be free. Northern leaders would not give up, and Southern states would not give in. Finally, a group of Southern states decided that they could no longer be a part of the United States. They broke away and formed the Confederate States of America. Now the country was divided into two parts, the Confederacy in the South and the Union in the North. On April 12, 1861, armies from the two sides began to fight. This was the start of the Civil War. Freedom! On January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln signed a special order called the Emancipation Proclamation. It said that slaves in the Confederate States were forever free. Many plantation owners did not tell their slaves about President Lincoln's order. They wanted slaves to keep working. Even when the owners knew that the South would lose the war, they wanted one more free harvest. But Union soldiers brought the news to slaves as the troops moved through the South. Those slaves spread the word to others. Thousands of freed slaves joined the Union Army to help win the war. Some Texas slaves heard tales about freedom, but they couldn't be sure these stories were true. Slaves had to be careful. If they even talked about freedom, their owners might punish them. Slaves who tried to leave plantations would be whipped or killed. All they could do is wait and hope. Finally, in April of 1865, the Union won the Civil War. More than 700,000 people from the North and South had died fighting in those wars. On June 19th, Union General Granger brought the news of freedom to Galveston. Texas was the last state where the official announcement was made.